Chapter 13. On that day they read in the book of Moses in the hearing of the people, and therein was found written, that an Ammonite or a Moabite should not enter into the assembly of God forever, because they met not the children of Israel with bread and with water, but hired Balaam against them to curse them. However, our God turned the curse into a blessing. And it came to pass, when they heard the law, that they separated from Israel all the alien mixture. Now before this, Eliashib the priest, who was appointed over the chambers of the house of our God, being allied unto Tobiah, had prepared for him a great chamber, where aforetime they laid the meal offerings, the frankincense, and the vessels of the tithes of the corn, the wine, and the oil, which were given by commandment to the Levites and the singers and the porters and the heave offerings for the priests. But in all this time I was not at Jerusalem, for in the 32 year of Artaxerxes king of Babylon I went unto the king, and after certain days asked I leave of the king. And I came to Jerusalem, and understood the evil that Eliashib had done for Tobiah, in preparing him a chamber in the courts of the house of God. And it grieved me sore. Therefore I cast forth all the household stuff of Tobiah out of the chamber. Then I commanded, and they cleansed the chambers, and there brought I again the vessels of the house of God, with the meal offerings and the frankincense. And I perceived that the portions of the Levites had not been given them, so that the Levites and the singers that did the work were fled every one to his field. Then considered I with the rulers, and said, Why is the house of God forsaken? And I gathered them together, and set them in their place. Then brought all Judah the tithe of the corn, and the wine, and the oil unto the treasuries. And I made treasurers over the treasuries Shelemiah the priest, and Zadok the scribe, and of the Levites Pedaiah. And next to them was Canaan the son of Zaccur, the son of Mattaniah. For they were counted faithful, and their office was to distribute unto their brethren. Remember me, O my God, concerning this, and wipe not out my good deeds, for that I have done for the house of my God, and for the wards thereof. In those days saw I in Judah some trading wine presses on the Sabbath, and bringing in heaps of corn, and laden asses therewith, as also wine, grapes, and figs, and all manner of burdens, which they brought into Jerusalem on the Sabbath day. And I forewarned them in that day wherein they sold victuals. There dwelt men of Tyre also therein, who brought in fish, and all manner of ware, and sold on the Sabbath unto the children of Judah, and in Jerusalem. Then I contended with the nobles of Judah, and said unto them, What evil thing is this that you do, and profane the Sabbath day? Did not your fathers thus? And did not our God bring all this evil upon us, and upon this city? Yet you bring more wrath upon Israel by profaning the Sabbath. And it came to pass that, when the gates of Jerusalem began to be dark before the Sabbath, I commanded that the doors should be shut, and commanded that they should not be opened till after the Sabbath. And some of my servants set I over the gates, that there should no burden be brought in on the Sabbath day. So the merchants and the sellers of all kind of ware lodged without Jerusalem once or twice. Then I forewarned them, and said unto them, Why lodge you about the wall? If you do so again, I will lay hands on you. From that time forth came they no more on the Sabbath. And I commanded the Levites that they should purify themselves, and that they should come and keep the gates to sanctify the Sabbath day. Remember unto me, O my God, this also, and spare me according to the greatness of your mercy. In those days also saw I the Jews that had married women of Ashdod, of Ammon, and of Moab. And their children spoke half in the speech of Ashdod, could not speak in the Jews' language, but according to the language of each people. And I contended with them, and cursed them, and smote certain of them, and plucked off their hair, and made them swear by God, You shall not give your daughters unto their sons, nor take their daughters for your sons, or for yourselves. Did not Solomon, king of Israel, sin by these things? Yet among many nations was there no king like him, and he was beloved of his God. And God made him king over all Israel. Nevertheless, even him did the foreign women cause to sin. Shall we then hearken unto you to do all this great evil, to break faith with our God in marrying foreign women? And one of the sons of Jehoiada, the son of Eliashib, the high priest, was son-in-law to Sanballat the Horoni. Therefore I chased him from me. Remember them, O my God, because they have defiled the priesthood and the covenant of the priesthood of the Levites. Thus cleansed I them from everything foreign, and appointed wards over the priests, and for the Levites, and every one in his work, and the wood offering at times appointed, and for the firstfruits. Remember me, O my God, for good. All right, let's go back up, verse 1. And now yesterday we were in the recordings of the priesthood and those that came forth with Zerubbabel and those from the first return. There was 2 returns of the captivity of Babylon. And we're going to find out that's basically what we were doing for the last 2 chapters. And this chapter here would probably better tie in with the information we was getting from chapters 9 and 10 and with that. So we kind of got off there with some genealogy. But now we're back and we'll find out. So is Nehemiah. We're going to pick it up here in verse 1. And on that day they read in the book of Moses in the hearing of the people, and therein was found written that an Ammonite and a Moabite should not enter into the assembly of God forever. So this was during that time, and if we went back, they was gathered together there on the 24th day of the month. There was an assembly. And we'll find out they was gathered for a purpose, and that was they was reading the Word of God out of the book. And this would be that book of the law. See, that book of the law, the ordinances, the statutes, which Moses had. This book of Moses, it was called, and that's the Torah. That's the book of the law. And it would be in the understanding that they was going reading the book, and that's those things that was wrote down, that Moses had written down, this one who's drawn out. And they was reading them into the hearing of the people, and the people understood them. We remember they made an agreement, and we'll find that it was even documented, those that set their seal on that agreement. And it was an order, they found written there in the order, that an Ammonite or Moabite should not enter into the assembly of God forever. They was prohibited from the entering into the assembly, or it would be into the tent of the congregation at that time, or these that would be gathered together. And any time you are gathered in an understanding, this would be to be assembled in that understanding, were these Ammonite, and that was those of the nations. We remember the Ammonites and the Moabites. They were the 2 sons of the daughters of Lot, and the Moabite. The Moabite means just that, from her father, and that they should not enter into the assembly of God. 2, because they met not the children of Israel with bread and water, but hired Balaam against them to curse them. However, our God turned that curse into a blessing. And we remember that story where Balaam, he came out to curse them. He was a prophet for hire, we could call Balaam. Balaam means it's not for the nations, or this, not a lord over the nations. He was a hired prophet, and he was hired to come out and curse the children of Israel when they was coming back. And we'll find out the Ammonites and the Moabites, they didn't go out to greet them, or neither was they trying to prosper their way through. 3, and it came to pass when they heard all the law that they separated from Israel the alien mixture, And it came to pass now, and we can find this documented in Ezra. Ezra was already upset about this, because they was taking these foreign understandings, and these daughters are just that. That's what comes with them. Now before this, Eliashib the priest, who was appointed over the chambers of the house of our God, being allied unto Tobiah. Now it was before this happened, though. We remember Eliashib, that which the mighty one is restored. The mighty one is restored. He is the priest, the one that stands before God, who is appointed over the chambers, and that's those rooms in the house of God, those chambers, those places in the chambers of God, house of God, and he was allied unto Tobiah, and Tobiah. We know Tobiah. He was one of the priests who couldn't prove his papers. He didn't have his papers, and he was set out of the congregation. And Tobiah had exalted himself in the land, and he had many followers, and we're going to find out Eliashib was one of them. And he was the governor of the Ammonite, and Tobiah means this goodness of God who was over the nations. 5. He had prepared for him a great chamber, where aforetime they laid the meal offerings, the frankincense, and the vessels of the tithes of the corn, the wine and the oil, which were given by commandment to the Levites, and to the singers, and the porters, and the heave offerings for the priests. And so now Eliashib has prepared for him a little room. See, he's made him a place in the house of God. And we'll find out that he was not a priest that would be allowed to stay there. He had been put out of the priesthood, see. And anyway, he made him a room, this room where they would bring the treasuries that were stored up for the Levites and the singers, these meal offerings. That's that dry portion that goes with the offering that makes atonement. The frankincense, these are the things that they would bring the sweet odor for God. These vessels, all those things that would contain even the tithes, that portion of the law, see, of corn for the harvest, and the wine, that new wine, and the old wine that makes drunken as well. The oil is that anointing, which these things were given by commandment to the Levites, and by the law, we'll find out these things, to keep the house of God going is what it was for. And to the singers, those singers are ones that call to remembrance this mercy of God. David set there. And the porters, those that keep the gates. And these heave offerings, those free will offerings that make atonement for these priests. And what they do is they redeem the priest. They keep the priest going so he can keep the house of God going. These are those that stand before God. 6. But in all this time I was not at Jerusalem. For the 32nd year of Artaxerxes, king of Babylon, I went unto the king, and after certain days asked I leave of the king. But we'll find out during this period, I was not at Jerusalem. Nehemiah was not there. He was not in these teachings of peace. For in the now witness this 2 and this 30th year, because 30th is a portion as well in the greater understanding, and the 30th would be that which would complete the witness or fulfill the witness, be to finish the witnessing of the law. And 30 is always dedicated, and it's that year of Artaxerxes. We'll find that portion there. That 30th was the 2 and 30th was the portion of the reign of Artaxerxes. Artaxerxes is this one who stirs up the pot because it's boiling. He was the Molech of Babylon, even of confusion. And we'll see that Nehemiah had went unto him during that period. After certain days, he would ask the king to take the leave. And 7, and I came to Jerusalem and understood the evil that Eliashib had done for Tobiah in preparing him a chamber in the courts of the house of God. So when he got back to Jerusalem, that place of peaceful teachings, and he understood the evil that Eliashib had done. Eliashib was a priest in the house of God. He was this mighty one that restored, when what he did was try to prepare a chamber, a place to dwell even in the courts of the house of God for Toviah. Toviah was this goodness of God that he gave to all the other nations. 8. And it grieved me sore, therefore I cast forth all the household stuff of Toviah out of the chamber. And it grieved me, therefore I cast forth all this household stuff, everything that belonged to Tobiah. See, out of this chamber, because Tobiah didn't have his papers. Tobiah couldn't prove his. Tobiah didn't belong there. This was because he had been polluted by these other nations. We'll find out. 8 or 9. Then I commanded, and they cleansed the chambers, and there brought I again the vessels of the house of God with the meal offerings and the frankincense. Then I commanded that, and they cleansed the chambers. We'll find out they washed the room down, and there brought I again these vessels, these things that contained everything of the house of God, all these things that belonged to God, or the house of God, or do the work, the orders, and keep them things of the house of God, keep it going. With the meal offerings, that's that dry portion that went with it. There was took a little bit of force, we'll find out, to get these things done. There's a little bit of dryness to it. It may not be so pleasant. We'll find out that some things are necessary. And the frankincense. And that's what it would restore, would be these pleasant odors that go to God. 10. And I perceived that the portions of the Levites that had not been given them, so that the Levites and the singers that did the work were fled, every one to his field. Then I perceived or understood that these portions, these things that belonged to the Levites, those that joined, had not been given them. They haven't been given their portions, so that the Levites and the singers, these that join, and those that keep these, calling to remembrance the mercies of God that David said there, that they did the work. Everyone had fled to his field. Everyone went back to the house. They couldn't keep these ordinances because there wasn't substance. We'll see that they was robbing the house already. 11. Then contended I with the rulers, and said, Why is the house of God forsaken? And I gathered them together, and set them in their place. Then I contended with the rulers, and said, Why is the house of God forsaken? Why are these things not done? Why is this not kept? See, because everyone, they had took the oath, sealed it with their seal, put their name on it. 12. Then brought all Judah the tithe of the corn and the wine and the oil and the treasuries. This is after everybody gets back in their place. See, then brought Judah, that's all those appraisings, this portion of the law, that harvest, and the wine, it's both, and the oil, that which anoints, it comes from the olive, unto the treasuries. They returned these things back where they go, to keep the order of the house of God. 13. And I made treasurers over the treasuries, Shelemiah the priest, and Zadok the scribe, and the Levites, Pedaiah, and next to them was Canaan the son of Zachar, the son of Mattaniah, for they were counted faithful, and their office was to distribute unto the brethren. So I made treasurers, these ones that are over the treasuries, these treasuries, even these judgments that are stored up. See, because that's what is kept there. And Shelemiah was that peace of God, and keep the peace of God for those that stand before God. And Zadok was the just. He's the justice, or the judgment even, that comes from the scribe. They wrote these things down, and these are those that record it or recount it. And of the Levites, these are those that joined, Pedaiah, and next to them was Canaan the son of Zachar. And Pedaiah, these were those that was ransomed or redeemed of God. And next to them was Canaan. That's the mercy. That's the mercy that comes from those that remember. Zachariah, the son of Mattaniah, and he's the one that come forth from the gift of God. For they were counted faithful, see, and they would keep their office. That's that ward we mentioned, this ward, this position, this post, and it was to distribute unto their brethren. These make sure that everybody got their portion. Those of the same understanding. 14. Remember me, O my God, concerning this. Wipe not out my good deeds that I have done for the house of my God, and for the wards thereof. These positions. This would be the second time now that they would be placed in their posts. We'll find out. They abandoned their posts the first time. 15. In those days saw I in Judah some trading wine presses on the Sabbath, and bringing in heaps of corn, and lading asses therewith, as also wine, grapes, and figs, and all manner of burdens, which they brought into Jerusalem on the Sabbath day. And I forewarned them in that day wherein they sold victuals. And in those days, it was during that same period, when he got back, he saw these things going on in Judah. Some of them were treading the wine presses. That they was doing work, preparing that which they was going to sell on the next day. And on the Sabbath, they were bringing in these heaps of corn. See, carrying in from the field. They was out in the field harvesting, doing the work. And God said, you shall do no work in that holy day. Sanctify the Sabbath. And that's a whole other subject right there. And these laden these asses. They was loading these things to carry their burdens. See, these asses, and we're going to find out. These asses, they generally will refer to as to carry their leaders therewith, as also this wine, these grapes, these figs, all manner of burdens, these wine and grapes, even that which has been prepared. They're going to prepare these grapes that come off the vine, these figs, these are the fruit of the trees. All these manners of anything that they could sell, they was bringing into the city, which they brought into Jerusalem on the Sabbath day. And they did these things on the Sabbath day. And that's the seventh day, and that's the day God said, you shall rest. See, that's the day of rest. God, you sanctify that day. It's set aside for a purpose. It's even set aside because of it. There's an understanding set aside to go with that. And that's that if you will keep that Sabbath, you shall dwell in the law, and God will not have to cause you to return to it. Even I forewarned them in that day, in that understanding, all those that sowed victuals on the Sabbath. 16. There dwelt men of Tyre also therein, who brought in fish and all manner of ware, and sowed on the Sabbath unto the children of Judah in Jerusalem. And there dwelt men of Tyre. Tyre is that rock. Tyre is that merchant city from long ago. See, that's what Tyre represents. That's where they're not a god, and they merchandise all these manners, and also they would bring fish, because that was a coastal place, and they would catch these fish, and this was another market, the fish market, so they would bring all this stuff in, all manners of ware, utensils, and everything else, and they would sell these things on the Sabbath unto the children of Judah. Those are praisings, and those are the peaceful teachings which God had made a covenant with them, see. And they was not allowed to buy or sell on the Sabbath day. But these fish are those that live in the sea, and all the utensils that go with the harvesting of them and things like that. 17. Then I contended with the nobles of Judah, and said unto them, what evil thing is this that you do, and profane the Sabbath day? So now we're going to find out there's some contention here with the nobles. These would be the leaders of Judah. Those are praisings, and we'll find out. Nehemiah says unto them, what evil thing is this that you're doing, and profane the Sabbath day? And that they was letting them sell, buy, and trade, all these people coming in to tempt, see, the children of Judah and Jerusalem into sinning, see, into committing these sins. We'll find out, because if you Now, if you commit a sin, you're going to have to make atonement for that. 18. Did not your fathers thus, and did not our God bring all this evil upon us and upon this city? Yet you bring more wrath upon Israel by profaning the Sabbath, by defiling the Sabbath, by polluting the Sabbath, allowing this sin, and not teaching that you can't do that. See, you're not allowed to defile the Sabbath day, that day of rest. See, because if you defile the Sabbath, we'll find out that sooner or later God's going to bring you back to that law. You're going to go around the full circle. You're going to get punished for defiling the Sabbath day. That's the day of God's rest. It's a great day of silence, a calm, because we'll find out God will speak in judgment that day. 19. And it came to pass that when the gates of Jerusalem began to be dark before the Sabbath, I commanded that the doors should be shut, and commanded that they should not be opened till after the Sabbath. And some of my servants set I over the gates, that there should no more burden be brought in on the Sabbath day. And it came to pass that when Jerusalem, this is the place of peaceful teachings, began to be dark, and there was darkness coming, the light was almost gone. It was just before the Sabbath, the sun's going down. I commanded that the doors should be shut. These places where they're going out should be locked. And they commanded that they should not be open till after the Sabbath. And no more shall they come in and out with their merchandising till after the Sabbath, that period of rest which God causes, see. And that's when you're caused to return to the law and the orders thereof. And some of my servants set I over the gates, these places of judgment, that they should no burden be brought in on the Sabbath day. And nobody carrying nothing in here. It was for merchandising. See, for merchandising on the Sabbath. That's that day of rest, even that day of rest and understanding. 20. So the merchants and the sellers of all kind of ware lodged without Jerusalem once or twice. And so these merchants, they're hard-headed. They don't want to give up. And some of these sellers, they sell everything. Every manner, and we'll include, and there were in those things that we would find they had idols for sale, idolatry, bringing this stuff in. Yeah, it was in all their merchandising. They had symbolisms without Jerusalem, and they would lodge outside Jerusalem, and they did so once or twice, and once or twice we can witness this. 21. Then I forewarned them and said unto them, Why lodge you about the wall? If you do so again, I will lay hands on you. From that time forth came they no more on the Sabbath. And so I forewarned them and said unto them, Why lodge you about the wall? Why do you hang around these places? This separates, and we'll find out. This is the law. There's a law separating you. And this would be the number 4 there, if that would be in the work of God as well there. This wall that separates, because they wouldn't give up. They kept trying to come against it. But Nehemiah tells them, if you do this again, I'm going to have to lay some works on you. And from that time forth, they no more came on the Sabbath. They stayed away from there from then on. We'll find out on that day of rest, 22. And I commanded the Levites that they should purify themselves, and that they should come and keep the gates, to sanctify the Sabbath day. Remember unto me, O my God, this also, and spare me according to the greatness of your mercy. And I commanded the Levites, and that's those that join. That's the joiners. They have the ability to join. This understanding, see, to the people. That's what their abilities are. That they should purify themselves, make themselves clean, keep the law yourself, and teach others to do the same, and keep these gates, those places of judgment. That's where they go in and out, those judgments. That's to transgress the law. Sanctify the Sabbath day, that day of rest, and keep that day of rest. We'll find out, because it's an understanding that goes with that Sabbath day, a little rest. That if you don't, well, it's going to go full circle. We'll find out God's going to cause you to rest. 23. In those days also saw I the Jews that had married women of Ashdod, of Ammon, and Moab. And also, now, in those days, and those same understandings, they was reading from the law and the book. They knew what was going on. Saw I the Jews, and those are future, those are praisings. It's a broad spectrum. It's not aimed at any one people. We could point out and say, oh, that's a Jew, that's a Jew. It don't work like that. That had married these women of Ashdod, and they've joined themselves now, took in marriage, these women. A woman, what's a woman? It is from men, from men of Ashdod. And that's that spoil. I will spoil wonderfully of Ammon and of Moab, this of the nations, and that was from her father. 24. And the children spoke half in the speech of Ashdod, could not speak in the Jews' language, but according to the language of each people. So their children, that would be the ones that come forth from them, would speak half in the speech of Ashdod, see, and half in the Jewish language. And what this is becomes a polluting of the speech, a polluting of the words, see, and a twisting, and that's what happens. And their language becomes according to the language of each people. The language becomes divided because understanding is in the Word, see, and the Word defines understanding. The law is your understanding. It's your knowledge. It's your wisdom. 25. And I contended with them, and cursed them, and smote certain of them, and plucked off their hair, made them swear by God, you shall not give your daughters unto their sons, nor take their daughters for your sons or for yourselves. And I contended with them, cursed them. We're going to find out. He gave them a few words, and he smote certain of them. He had to put some works on a few of them. He plucked off their hair, and that's to remove their glory. See, remove their glory, had to take their understanding from them. God has a way of doing that. See, in a moment you can think you're on top of the hill, you're the smartest one in the world, the sharpest tool in the shed, and then suddenly, when you go to get used, you just can't cut it. And he made them swear by God, you shall not give your daughters, and that's your understanding. See, these understandings that come from your father, your wife, this reflection of your understanding, you won't give them to their sons. And that's the ones that bring forth seed unto them. Nor take their daughters for your sons and for yourselves. You won't take their understandings and give them to your sons. These ones are going to bring forth seed unto you. Nor for yourselves. See? Because it would be the same thing. Because why? These understandings are what brings in this mingling in of understanding, this mingling in of speech that we find so profoundly in all the earth. 26. Did not Solomon, king of Israel, sin by these things? Yet among many nations was there no king like him, and he was beloved of his God, and God made him king over all Israel. Nevertheless, even him did the foreign women cause to sin. And Solomon, that peace, that great peace, whom God caused to build his house. God, his father prepared everything, and this great peace, and even the king of Israel, all those that contended with the mighty one, they sinned by these things. Yet among all the nations there was no king like Solomon. He was beloved of his God, and God made him king over all Israel. God did make him king over all Israel. David was the king over all Israel. Solomon was. And then after that, the kingdom was split. See, why? He sinned, see, with these foreign women and caused them to sin. And he built all these high places. Well, no, and his children didn't have the understanding. We'll find out. There was a commandment went forth to the king. You should take the law and you should keep it by your side. Night and day shall you meditate in it. You don't want to break the law. 27. Shall we then hearken unto you and do all this great evil, to break faith with our God and marrying foreign women? Shall we then listen? Now listen. Unto you and do all this great evil, to take these understandings from all the other nations? And break faith with our God and marrying these foreign women, these foreign understandings, these foreign things that come from men of these foreign places. They don't have the knowledge of God and the law, the covenant. You make an agreement with God and you're bound by it. We'll find out that's what it's really all about. The transgression of a simple agreement. 28. And one of the sons of Jehoiada, the son of Eliashib, the high priest, was son-in-law to Sanballat the Horoni. Therefore I chased him from me. And one of the sons of Jehoiada, we'll find out, that's one that God made known. He was the one that come forth from Eliashib the high priest. And Eliashib, that mighty one, has restored this one that was above those that stood before God. He was the son-in-law, and the son in the law even, to Sanballat. And Sanballat was that strength of the holes, the strength of the holes. Therefore I chased him away. Man, we'll find out he wasn't supposed to be in there either. 29, remember them, oh my God, because they have defiled the priesthood and the covenant of the priesthood and the Levites. They wasn't keeping the law. They wasn't studying the law. They was outside the law. We'll find out. They used it to rule. They used it for gain. God, this was never the purpose of the law anyway. The purpose of the law was to bring understanding, to give knowledge, that all, would be able to keep the law. And this is really how the priesthood is defiled, by polluting the understanding of these understandings to stand before God. This was the covenant of the priesthood in the beginning, to feed these children of God, that to give them the understanding it takes to have a prosperous life. 30. Thus cleansed I them from everything foreign, and appointed wards for the priest and for the Levites, every one in his work. And this is how it was done. They were cleansed from everything, all these foreign understandings, and appointed these wards, these positions for the priest and for those that join, every one in his work, doing what he was supposed to be doing. They were supposed to be, we'll find out, keeping the house of God going. 31. And for the wood offering, and at times appointed, and for the fruits, remember me, O my God, for good. And it was for the wood, to make sure that there was wood for the offering. That was these things that was taken from all the exalted ones of the forest, and they was hewn down and brought in to make the wood for the altar of God. These things that where they makes the fire. It makes the fire to offer the atonement for the sins of the people. And at these periods it was appointed, and it was for the first fruits. That's to bring in also all these first fruits of your understanding, so they can be delivered to the priest according to as the law is written. And we're going to get more into the law as we get closer to the Torah. We are going to move forward, though, to the book of Job. We are really kind of finishing up this section of the Bible, of the book, and we are going to move forward to Job. I hope to see you there. Turn and return.